Greetings. It's about that time again where we have another update coming soon, even though update 31 just released on consoles last week. With a new PTS update lurking around the corner, the combat team wanted to give you all some deep dives into the spicier stuff coming with this upcoming patch. In the last update, we try to keep things similar or simpler with the number of changes to help combat the change fatigue many have reported. But progress cannot sleep for long as we march ever forward to improving the game. Our focus in Update 32 is twofold: improving Peroxide balance and continuing the hybridization improvements from previous updates. These areas are topics we've seen a significant amount of discussion in the realms of combat balance, so we're going to be following up to try and get better reins on both. In Update 30, we introduced item Peroxide scaling, which aimed to lower the ease of access of free damage and healing from them by ensuring you needed a baseline of stats to make this set really stand out. While this did help significantly reduce the overbearing success of tanky builds utilizing damage-oriented sets, it also increased the amount of damage that glass cannon and more offensive-oriented builds did by a reasonable margin. This, while an intentional result, still has the issue of the power available when stacking multiples of these sets. Now, certain combinations are leading to very binary and unengaging gameplay. To target that issue, we're introducing a new rule set for offensive item sets that have low counterplay. Now, when wearing a set that deals a burst of damage within a 4-second window, it'll prevent any other use of these types of sets for 1 second. This is to deny the ability to layer multiple effects into single attacks, significantly reducing burst potential. This rule set will be explained in further detail in the PTS patch notes, and keep in mind we are open to adjusting this along the way. In relation to this, we're also aiming our sights on reining in some of the power creep that's been coming into the game as of late, particularly affecting PvE. The dominance of critical hits in ESO is by no means new, and despite the reduction to the overall sourcing of it, we're still seeing it win out by a significant margin when compared to other stats. Rather than outright nerfing critical chance or potency, damage and healing, and hurting builds that aren't really doing more than what we expect, we decided to move forward with a hard cap to critical damage and healing. It is our hope that this keeps critical chance and potency as viable and powerful stats, but also helps open up other stat and build paths. Much like the penetration stats, these will be important to prioritize up until a point, and from there, builds will want to seek out other sources of power. To tie things up in the proc set and critical topics for this update, we're also making a fairly significant adjustment that we hope the previously mentioned changes will prevent from becoming too out of hand. Proc sets that scale with your weapon or spell damage, max magicka, or max stamina will now once again be able to critically strike in Update 32. By doing this, in addition to reducing the burst potential when stacking these sets and limiting the amount they can critically strike for, we hope to give these sets some much needed love in PvE situations where they've struggled to maintain viability after the removal of their ability to critically strike in years of old. There will be additional balance adjustments to these values to try and prevent them from becoming the best in slot, and we'll have rules on which ones can and cannot crit, so keep your eyes peeled for the lists and details in the PTS patch notes. Aside from these changes and the usual bug fixing and less flashy global adjustments, like some long overdue Dragon Knight love, we have one more big change coming this update. As mentioned before, hybridization improvements have been the push in many updates ever since Champion Point 2.0 was released in Update 29, and it's something we will continue with as we see a lot of the good it does. ESO has always tried to hold itself to the mantra of play the way you want, but a lot of our stats and ability calculations actively push against this concept in ways we find less than ideal. In Update 32, we're taking the next big approach to change the concept of what a hybrid is by making all item sets grant hybrid stats. This means sets that grant weapon damage will now grant weapon and spell damage, spell penetration will be physical and spell penetration, and spell critical will be weapon and spell critical. With this change, we hope to open up builds to new abilities and ideas, making the game more digestible and understandable to newer players, and empower you with choices when creating your dream build. Our focus with this upcoming PTS update will be heavily concentrated on ensuring that the item set proc adjustments with critting and prevention release in a way that improves the gameplay balance, and we'll be keeping a close eye on those topics. We look forward to seeing a myriad of discussions that pop up, as we know there will be much to theorycraft and mull over. Thanks for reading, and see you in Tammy out. I love how the first post is like, bruh. The first post is like, bruh. Okay, so let's break this down real quick, alright? But yeah, welcome in, viewers. Alright, so update 32 Combat Preview. Just gonna break it down and analyze it. And I'm gonna be analyzing this from an endgame perspective. At this point, if you're watching this on YouTube, you probably even haven't gotten to this point. Most people don't. They just kind of comment and just kind of like assume what's in the video. So, but for the people who do actually make it to this point, I'm gonna be talking about this from an endgame perspective, not like in perspective from everywhere, like from whether it's casual play. I'll touch on it, but I won't really talk about too much about it. So the first point of the update 32 combat preview is definitely the cooldown on damage proc sets. So when people say proc sets, they typically think of damage proc sets like Veladrat, Hrothgar's Chill, whatever. They don't really think about proc sets like Powerful Assault or Clever Alchemist, right? They're primarily referring to the former type of proc sets here. The ones that deal a burst of damage within a 4-second window. So I guess once this, it's a little confusing on the first read, but once that set activates, it'll prevent any use of these types of sets, like similar sets, for 1 second. So there's gonna be at least a 1 second cooldown in between each proc, assumingly in PvP. PvE, I'm kind of curious how this is gonna be implemented in PvE, but I think PvE doesn't really matter because PvE, there's no like real like game, like there's no PvP gameplay in PvE, if that makes sense. So we're not really gonna seeing a lot of nerfs to damage in PvE. So that's the first point. Now a lot of people, I think Feng Rush even on Twitter was like making fun of, like, you know, everyone's complaining about proxies in PvP, right? And then you know, on the surface level, it's like, what the fuck are they doing? They're giving proc sets the ability crit again, but I think they're kind of also hoping on this kind of window of time being enough, or maybe the start to it being enough to prevent proc sets from being too overblown in PvP. And I think they kind of said later on as well that they're gonna kind of review which sets to give crits to. Like, yeah, they did. So for PvEers, we also I think a lot of people kind of thought immediately when they read this, oh, let's Reliquin, because Reliquin, when it used to crit, did like something insane. I think in VHOF many years ago, it was like 2018. I think it was doing like 13 easily, like 13k DPS by itself on Pinnacle Factotum. So, so I think Reliquin and stuff like that, I think they'll need to probably look at as a exception to the rule, or maybe part of the rule, depending on how they're going to go about this. But there's going to be a shit ton of changes to item sets, not just with how the monster sets or proc sets crit, but also how they're organized in terms of their 1 to 4 PS bonus stats. So like things like weapon crit will also have spell crit. And I think this will be confusing to a degree for some sets. I don't know how they're going to handle sets like Julianus and Hundings, because Julianus and Hundings respectively have weapon crit and spell crit separate. So is Julianus going to have spell crit and weapon crit from 1 to 4 piece, and the 5th piece bonus is going to be weapon crit? Or are those just kind of like out there? But yeah, I mean that's really it. I think in terms of PvP, we just never can't predict it. I don't know. I think just gonna have to see what happens, really. PTS testing for PvP, not very good. Once it hits live, then we'll know, which is kind of the sad, unfortunate truth. For PvE, for sure, you know, I think it's kind of silly that 2 spell crit pieces, like 1 Slime Crawl and 1 Zan, can outperform an entire 2-piece monster set that actually does something, like Alambris or Balkan Scoria or whatever, right? Or Grothar. So I think for PvE, we are going to see a damage gain in that department. And speaking of PvE, we're going to be talking about the cap, the crit damage cap that they talked about here. And I think a lot of people are talking about this. And I've seen some pretty good takes. I've also seen some pretty bad takes. So let's just kind of review. So I think they finally kind of recognize that you just can't really change crit chance. Like, it doesn't make sense. Mathematically speaking, logically speaking, it doesn't make sense. Like, even if you like, they nerfed Mother Sorrow, they nerfed the Leviathan, whatever. They nerfed the crit sets in terms of the value they give, but people will still chase after that crit value, 70 to 80 or more percent, with the Thief Mundus and a crit set. So they nerfed them, but it's like nothing happened because it's just mathematically fucking best in slot. So it's like trying to nerf it is trying to fucking hit the ocean. I don't know, like trying to hurt the ocean by slapping at the waves. It doesn't make any sense. So I think they finally realized that, thank goodness, and now they're targeting critical damage and healing. So instead of critical chance being nerfed this time around, it's going to be critical damage and healing. We're going to focus more on the critical damage part because critical healing, it's not as important or really prevalent in a lot of the even like the hardest content for PvE, right? And for PvP, it's highly unlikely that you really get that much critical healing, depending on your spec, or maybe you are speccing for that for a group build, but that's kind of a different story. But let's focus on PvE here for critical damage. This is going to really depend on the value of the critical damage cap, right? Right now, it's uncapped. So I actually wrote this in Discord earlier. Oh yeah, here it is. Alright, so I love how Elias is like, I predict ZOS reveals companion merchant token systems. Okay, so this is like a very brief write-up that I just kind of made off the top of my head while I was in the car driving home. So right now, your base critical damage is roughly 50%, so that's like 0.5%, right? Or 0.5, sorry, 0.5 times as a multiplier. And everything else is pretty much going to add on to that. So let's say you have 7 pieces of medium armor, you would have 64, or 0.64x. If you reach 150%, that's 1.5x, or 1.5 times the damage of the crit. So it really depends here, because let's say they cap the crit damage at, I don't know, 100 or whatever, right? Something easy. You would only need, your character plus whatever will get you to 100. And I think there's some valid concern on part of class balancing for things like, Nightblade, because they do have a lot of sources of crit damage, like Emerge, Grim Focus alone gives, they give 20 in total. Backstabber and Fighting Finesse are CP related. And I think this is a good thing, to be honest. Not only do they... Oh, yeah, sorry, Skinny. Yeah, my fucking math is bad right now. I can't even read properly right now. But anyway, what was I saying? But anyway, oh my god, I'm lost. Shit. Okay, so I think this... No, Xbox. I think this is a good thing, because not only are they not targeting crit chains anymore, but if they really want to tone down the power creep from, for PvE, from, high in-game DPS, then I guess capping critical damage modifier is a good thing. But this all really, again, depends on the final outcome, like the final result, the final number of the critical damage cap. And if it's low, it might be bad. If it's too high, it's like there's like no point to it, right? Because if it's really high, like 300, like you'd still run the same thing. And I think it's a good thing too for potential, not just like individual builds, but also because in the end we're talking about group builds, right? Group oriented builds for DPS, for trials. I think this will make STAM DPS comps much more bearable, much more easier. I mean, the potential possibility of us ditching Minor Brittle or EC or both, maybe, for like a full STAM DPS comp, that's pretty big in my opinion, because that's going to solve indirectly itemization issues STAM comps will have. And of course, we're going to see that, I don't know, we're going to see what happens, I guess. We're going to see what happens. But yeah, I'm pretty excited for this change, because I think it will definitely open up a shit ton of options, especially for STAM DPS, and it's been a while. For Mag DPS, I mean, it doesn't really. I feel like it doesn't really matter either way for Mag DPS, because the current sets like Zen's Redress, or sorry, that's not really. crit. The current sets like EC and fucking double ice staves. That's just really meshes really well with magic DPS comps. Right now, when you have stam DPS for endgame progression groups, it's mixed comps. So you have like 3 to 4 stam DPS with 3 to 4 mag DPS. So you don't really actually have an entirely pure stam combat at the moment. But it is, again, the patch known as Waking Stam. They're not fully awoken yet, but we'll see what happens on PTS week 1. But yeah, that's pretty much it for crit damage. For the crit damage cap, I'm kind of interested in what people have to say about this. I'm sure there's going to be, as I said, a lot of theory crafting in regards to this once we know the number. And I think some people brought up during the Bethesda Twitch chat, in the Bethesda Twitch chat, that there's like no, I guess, class or subclass identity between magic and stamina in regards to, I guess, the item sets. But I don't know, dude. I think you can make an argument that that alone is an identity, but let's move on. Sorry, I feel like I'm rambling. Yeah, so they're going to continue the hybridization of item sets. Since the item set audit in update 26 or 7, somewhere around there, they've been working pretty hard on, changing a lot of shit. And this next patch, with all these rules about which sets will crit, which sets won't crit, which sets will be on cooldown after it's activated by a different set. I don't know, like, how people are gonna keep up with these changes. And just real talk here, Gina and Jessica mentioned this kind of as a, like a friendly, joking manner. But the rate at which we're getting content is fine. Like, no one really complains too much about it, besides the fact that, shit gets broken every patch. But the rate at which we get all these changes, the big changes, is not good. It just isn't. It's just exhausting. And they even mentioned that here. Where is it? Where they say that? They said something about, oh my god, why did you go here? Forward? Something about forward. Oh yeah. Okay, so we try to keep things simpler with the last update. And that was a sentiment I appreciated. But the last update, this update, update 31, from update 30 to update 31, like, there were a lot of small changes. Like the armor changes. You could argue those are really small changes. But what happened this past patch was there were so many small changes, they snowballed into big changes. Right? I appreciate the sentiment, but reality, unfortunately, told us otherwise, that it was not really, simple. Sure, smaller changes in nature, but there were a lot of changes that snowballed. This patch for update 32, they just said, fuck it, if you guys want change, if we want change, progress cannot sleep. I feel like I'm like reading a speech, a fucking steampunk speech in 19th century Victorian England. Oh, citizens, let's march forward. But I get that too. But at the same time, is there any way we can just get one big change for 1 year instead of doing this shit every single patch? Like, it's exhausting, dude. I guess it's not as exhausting for you guys as it is for me. Like, I don't know, dude. Outcast and I were talking about it, and it was like, there's so many fucking changes. You know what I mean? Like, how are we? It's just fucking annoying, frustrating, tiring, dude, to try to update content or shit like that. I mean, I don't know, dude. But whatever. That's kind of what I touch on, and they know it, but they can't seem to stop. Or maybe they can't stop. Who knows? Like. But I believe that content should be separate from changes, if that makes sense. But I don't think that's ever going to happen at this point. Yeah, but yeah, that's update 32 in a nutshell. There's a lot of things to kind of think about, but there's nothing to really think about either at the same time. Because not everybody knows all the details, and we'll know all the details on Monday. Yep, that's pretty much it. But let me know if you have any thoughts. And then just to kind of finish up the stream here. Well, I don't think I'll be finishing up the stream. I'll be working on something, but I'll be uploading this part of the VOD to YouTube. So say hi to YouTube. We'll be talking about the Bethesda stream that just happened because I want to talk. I want to talk about this. Because have I talked about the new mythics? I will soon. I will right now. All right, so let's talk about this. I'm gonna break it down, and I'm gonna summarize that stream we just watched as a roller coaster, like a legit roller coaster. Like I don't know. Maybe it's just me. I don't know if you guys were feeling, but I was on a roller coaster. Okay, so the first thing, the points of interest. So there's an add-on on PC for the console players in chat called Map Pins. It just basically shows you everything already on the map, like in your points of interest, delves, sky shards, lore books, everything. You can Google it. And I was really excited when they showed the tracker for the sky shard on their map, and I'm like, oh wait, that's gamepad UI, or that's like base game UI, and you see the sky shard. That's cool, but like the proximity base, the fact that it's proximity based is like, I don't know, like it depends, like how far away do you have to, how close do you have to be to the sky shard to see it on the map is my question. You know what I mean? It's cool that they also allow you to actually just go to the sky shards in terms of the map ping or map direction after you complete the zone. That's what I used to do. I just completed the zone entirely in terms of the story, and then I went to go get the sky shards after I finished the zone, before I moved on to the next zone. But other than that, the POI thing, in terms of proximity base, I have no idea how far or close you have to be to see it on your map. So is there, depending on how close you have to be, it may just be useless or fluff, or depending on how far away you are, it might be really good. I don't know. But we'll see on PTS. The second thing, Deadlands Zone. I was really excited to see Deadlands. I think the presentation of it was a bit off though, because the FPS, man, the FPS. This isn't really a game thing, but the FPS during the stream of the Deadlands, like being choppy, I'm like, I don't know, like that just kind of bothered me a little bit. I'm being nitpicky, but goddamn, dude. But yeah, the DLC is called Deadlands as well, and the Deadlands actually looked pretty interesting. That last city, what was it called? Flea Pit. That looked pretty cool. Other than that, we'll see what else they have to offer. I think it's just the typical delves, world bosses, storyline, probably a major town or two or settlement or two. No confirmation of an arena. A lot of people were thinking there's gonna be a mini trial. I have no idea why people think there will be a mini trial. I mean, that's that's like wishful thinking. Let's see. The third point, incursions. They mentioned incursions, so basically that's their internal term for things like dragon events, dolmens, Herald Storm, stuff like that. So maybe we'll see something unique in Deadlands for that. Alright, and we got a nice good old update to the mail system. You know how you have to buy something from Guild Trader, or someone sends you something in the mail, and you have to like port to a different zone to refresh your inbox and get that mail? You no longer have to do that. So that's a pretty cool, nice quality of life addition, I guess. Music settings. They mentioned music settings. You can change your music settings. You can change like combat music from boss music to regular combat music, if you have in-game music on. And we have, of course, 3 new mythics coming out. Just like its quarter 4 predecessor, Markarth. We're getting new mythics with a new zone. Okay, so when I heard this, because I was kind of like, I was a little I'm not gonna lie. I love the game. I love the people. You know, like everyone's a friend. But I was a little disappointed up until this point, and then I heard that 3 new mythics, and I was thinking to myself like, like what kind of mythics are we getting, and also how are we gonna farm these mythics? How brutal is the farming gonna be? How brutal is the grinding gonna be? Like how potent will these mythics be? You know, like I guess you have to somehow get people to buy a DLC, or because I'm gonna assume that it's gonna work in the same way as the Blackwood mythics do. You have to find them. You have to scry for it in Blackwood, and you have to excavate in Blackwood. So I'm kind of curious. I'd say in terms of what we're missing for mythics at this point is something like non-combat related. I think there was that one mythic that they couldn't release just yet that I think amplified the amount of loot you got, but they scrapped it for update 30 or Blackwood. So maybe we'll see that make a return. But hopefully we don't see another Shadowfen fiasco where people are literally like selling their node spots. Or that was like a Black Friday. That was like if you have to explain as an American what Black Friday is to like non-Americans, you can just point to what we did for Harpooners Waiting Killed. I hope we don't see that again. I know a lot of people hated that shit, and I was like, yeah, I mean, yeah, it sucks. It sucks. But you know what you gotta do if you want this. Alright, anyway, the big reveal. Alright, this was where the roller coaster dipped down, and I was like, oh, okay. Like Rich pointed out, I knew, I just had this feeling he was trolling, because at this point in the stream he was like, alright, I wanna show you guys a big reveal, or talk about something I almost let slip. And he like showed the menu of the item set collections having like a new button going from the zone to the sets. I'm just, and everyone was like, yep, that's it. And I was like, what? That's it? Okay, cool. But he kind of talks actually a lot about the new collection system here. And I think that's really the number one biggest positive thing on this list. The next two being, new tech for graphics, and, smoothing the game out, getting more FPS. Why not? If you have NVIDIA cards from the 2000 to 3000 generations. I have a 2080 Ti, so I'm looking forward to this. If you have a 3060 or something from this past year, that's cool too. You'll be able to use this. It's kind of cool that ESO is the first game to use this new NVIDIA tech. I guess they partner up on this one, the deep learning anti-aliasing. But the actual big reveal for the set collections is, eliminating a lot of the RNG in terms of farming for a specific piece of gear. I don't. Can I see like a raise of hands in chat? How many of you farmed for a VMA weapon, like a bow or a staff, or a Medusa Inferno, or a Zen's Inferno? Or anything, really. I mean, anything specific. I think we all have horror stories from going... yeah, exactly. Exactly. Everyone has the horror story. It took... When Rich was saying, it took me over 500 runs to get a VMA Inferno. And I was like, it took me over 350 runs. You can still find my race thread on the forums from like 2015. Like, I was so pissed, dude. I kept getting swords and shields, resto staves. I'm like, okay. And this was before transmutes, too. But yeah, so they're gonna eliminate RNG by having this game detect what's in your sticker book. So let's say you have everything except that Medusa Inferno staff from Arx Corinium. And on the last boss, that is guaranteed to drop from what I understand. And after you have everything in this from a dungeon or trial or whatever, or overland in the sticker book, the system reverts back to giving you random pieces again. But before you get everything, it'll try to give you the pieces you don't have in a random order. So I think this is really great. Pretty great. This is like the best change so far on the list I've talked about so far. I don't think anyone's going like, oh my god, this is so terrible. I'm fucking songs. So I don't think anyone's complaining about this. PvPers, I don't care who you are. No one's gonna complain about this unless you're fucking insane. However, I think we also have to take note that, yes, I think some people were talking about this earlier in my chat while we were watching the stream. The economy of the in-game economy of people farming the specific gear pieces and then selling them, because at this point, let's say you're going for Mother Sorrow Inferno. I think Kodiak's it's going to take you like 17 world bosses to get a guaranteed one, right? At most. So it's going to eliminate the RNG, but it's also going to eliminate some portions of the economy. And I don't know if that's a good or a bad thing in terms of positive or negative for the in-game economy. I feel like it doesn't really matter, because I think the in-game economy, especially on PC, NA or U is just, it's gone, dude. The inflation is like insane. So I don't know. Like I don't think anyone knows where the in-game economy for ESO is going at this point. Like, have you guys seen the crown rates recently on PCU? They're doing at least a minimum of 1,500 gold to 1 crown. PCNA, the price of spell power pots is like 90k for 200. So I don't know. I don't know what kind of effect the elimination of set selling is gonna have on ESO. Maybe people will have more gold and that'll lead to more inflation because they're spending less gold. I don't know. It's just fucking weird shit. But yeah, just again as a sort of side note, what we talked about in terms of the sticker book, or the game detecting what's missing from your sticker book, it's going to apply to all arenas, all trials, pretty much all the content. Overland monsters that we didn't really get a clarification on rewards for the worthy. I don't know if that would be affected, if someone heard in chat, but fingers crossed maybe. Or even from those vendors in Cyrodiil, in Blasterus, in Burma. But I don't think so. I think that's kind of a different system in itself. But yeah, this is only for item sets, gear, not things like a specific motif, I believe, or like the treasure loot you get for those achievements, you know. I wish. But alright, so and they kind of touched on what was not curated by the system, something about trash or base pop, as they call it, and I didn't catch the other two. They said icy coffers won't apply to it? Okay, well there you go. Alright. Let's talk about the last part of the stream. At this point, okay, so let me summarize a roller coaster ride. At first it was like, oh, okay, this is not a very scary or exciting ride. And then we got to this part and it was like, really? That's the end of the ride. And then we got to this part, okay, it's picking up speed. We got to this part, it's like, oh man, oh, we're reaching the top, oh. And then we get to this part, and it's like, oh my god, we're going higher, oh. And then, when we got to this part, it was like, alright, ride's over, get the fuck out. You're done. You're fucking done, get the fuck out of here. You're done, kid. You weren't even supposed to ride the ride in the first place. So let me explain what the fuck happened here, alright? So the gear sets and dressing room thing, I think a lot of people were expecting literally dressing room and alpha gear. And base game wise, so for those of you who don't know what those are add-ons we use to immediately swap our CP loadout, our gear loadout, our skill loadout. Obviously, it doesn't do what the Armory station, that's by the way going to be free for all players once the patch hits, is going to do. It gives you, it lets you bypass all the respec costs. It lets you bypass having to redo the quest for werewolf and vampire. It lets you, you know, it lets you bypass like curing your werewolf or your lycanthropy or your vampirism, and also like bypasses the respec cost for remorphing at the station or with a scroll or whatever, right? That's really cool. And while the concept's cool, at the same time, like there were some aspects of the concept I just didn't really like, or like felt like it felt like I felt a certain emotion. I don't know how to describe it. Was it disappointment or was it? I guess it was disappointment. It was the same feeling I had when they were talking about the POI thing, with, you know, how you have to be like close to the thing to see it on the map, and I'm like, what's the point of that? And it's also kind of the same feeling with this one. I really like that it lets us bypass a lot of things. I mean, who likes redoing the vampire quest with fucking Lamai Ball and Hursine, you know? Who likes going to the station, respecing everything. It does eliminate a lot of time, but the first thing I didn't like about it, it seemed very limited in terms of how many build slots you could have. And the biggest strength with alpha gear and dressing room is you have like 30, you can do like 32 loadouts, 64 loadouts if you modify it. So it's like, why would I, you know, I mean, you just have to change maybe your attributes, Mundustone, and that's pretty much it for alpha gear and dressing room. Maybe, you know what I mean? And then they talked about how it also swapped quick slots. That's cool. I I would say this is more useful for people swapping from PvE to PvP. I wouldn't say this is something for people who want to swap things within their own realm. Like, I don't know, you know what I mean? Like, if you're gonna switch from PvP build to a PvP build, you'll probably still go with, you know, Alpha Gear Dressing Room and then go respec attributes and then get them on the stone real quick. If you're going from PvP to PvE, you'll probably use this. No doubt, I'm gonna use it probably if I go from PvE to PvP and from PvP to PvE. So that's cool. No Munda Stones will be included, which is kind of weird to me. I guess there's some sort of game limitation. Like, we get Werewolf and Vampire, but not a Munda Stone effect. I guess the game would have to, I guess that's like more low than the game that has to remember you had it. You had a specific stone. And of course, Common Sense gear must be in inventory when you swap. And the biggest problem with this is that you can't take the station out of your house. You know what I mean? Like, what are you gonna like? You gonna sling your crafting station over your shoulder and be like, "Hey guys, let's go do this Twins prog," right? You can't do that. You can't just pour out of the trial and be like, "Hey, hold on, guys, we're on the speed run. We got the node that up to boss 3. All right, let me pour it out real quick and swap gear and come back in." You know, no one's gonna do that. No one's gonna do that, and that's like also my other issue with this. You can't. It's not portable compared to dressing room and gear sets. You know, but then they said we're gonna give you an armory assistant. And I was like, that's so fucking pay to win. Oh my lord. Like, they're gonna give us the armory station for free. Okay, that's cool. Okay. And then they're gonna sell us a 5,000 crown assistant. So we can have a portable armory station. And I was like, I was reeling, dude. I don't know if anyone clipped the moment. I was like, what the fuck is going on, dude? And then I don't know. I was flabbergasted because it was like, it's literally pay to win, right? 5,000 crowns to perform better than somebody in a trial potentially, or something. You know what I mean? Something. It's not like pay to win something. It's just kind of like pay to have such an unfair advantage. I think that's kind of within the realm of pay to win. Not exactly pay to win, but within the realm. But then they said, on this next part of the very emotional roller coaster ride, you can't use it in instances like trials. And I didn't know how to feel. I didn't know how to feel about this. It was like, on the one hand, it could be pay to win. On the other hand, it's fucking useless. You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. I don't know, man. I don't know, everyone. I just don't know. Like, what's the point? What's the point of having this? And not in instances like dungeons or trials. No one's gonna wait for you. No one's gonna wait for you to pour it out and gear swap. I don't know. I don't know how useful this is gonna be. I don't know if anyone's even gonna buy. I think people will buy it. Don't get me wrong. I don't think people are not gonna buy it. I think we've been shown time and time again that the whales in the Elder Scrolls Online, not the whales in the oceans of Tamriel, the whales will buy anything. They'll buy anything in however amount we think is impossible. All right, they will buy it. I'm not worried about the sales numbers. I'm just like looking at this as a player and being like, is this useful? Kind of, but not really. And it's like, I feel like that's the same for some of the other changes too, like the POI thing, and now the gear set thing. But yeah, I mean, yeah, that's all. That's all. That's it. That's all there's to talk about. It was so good, and then it was so bad, and now it's like, okay, well, whatever. All right. So next we're going to talk about is adjustments to item sets like Dark Convergence coming with PTS Week 1. A lot of people are like harping on about Dark Convergence, and I agree. Unless you're not, I think everyone's kind of anticipating everybody using it at this point. If you're not anticipating it, just like a ganker, you're gonna die to it. But I think there are more problematic item sets that they didn't mention, like Hrothgar's Chill and a few other item sets or combinations in PvP. That will hopefully be addressed by PTS Week 1. And I mentioned this because, you know, I don't really mention specific item set adjustments that often, unless they're really important. I think this is really important to look at because this was a tremendous, I think, failure on the part of both the player base and the devs for Update 31. I think everyone was just kind of too intently focused on the whole battle spirit adjustment or buff or nerf, whatever you want to call it. They did in the end, and they just didn't look at the item sets, man. And now we pay the price with a patch where everybody's wearing Dark Convergence Hrothgar's Chill. Yeah, I don't know. So this is basically confirmation that we're gonna have to deal with Dark Convergence, Hrothgar's Chill, and all the other really bad combinations. And it was a failure. It was a failure because they wanted to lower the time to kill, or sorry, raise the time to kill. They said, okay, players are killing each other way too fast. But this patch is even faster, so it's, that's gone. But yeah, that is it. These are all the changes discussed on today's ESO live stream that started 2 hours ago for Update 32. Yeah, and we also again reviewed the Update 32 Combat Preview. We'll know more details on Monday with the full PTS patch notes for Week 1. I am excited for some aspects of it. For the quality of life, I think it pales in comparison to Markarth, except for this one. But we'll see. We'll see. Maybe there's more surprises. Also, just as a last thing before I end the recording for YouTube, where is it, dude? Where is it? Where is it, man? Where is it? Oh, all right, here it is. Aside from these changes and the usual bug fixing and less flashy global adjustments, like some long overdue Dragon Knight love, I'm just gonna say it, but when I made this video about the worst class for PvE and PvP in ESO, there were some like pretty big copium comments about DK. Oh, you know, DK so strong. What's this fucking idiot talking about? And I'm like, are these people fucking on crack, dude? Have they played Stamcrow or fucking Stamden for PvP? Have they even played any class for PvE? Dude, I'm just saying, like, Dragon Knight needs so much, like, compared to the other classes. I'm not even saying it because, like, I would like to main it again, but I don't give a shit what I main. It's just awful to play, dude. PvP or PvE, it's just awful. I think, hang on, I have to go to the thing. I think, you know, Core, this guy, this really old school PvPer, yeah, this really old school PvP Core who mained MagDK. I mean, I think he said the best, to be honest. He said DK in general is stuck in 2014 with its passives. There needs to be a proper redesign of a lot of the passes that DK has. And it's true, like, the passes DK has is fucking dog shit compared to the other classes. It's a Toyota Corolla compared to the fucking Ferrari that's, you know, Necromancer is, or fucking Porsche that the Wardens are, or even the Templars are better than Dragon, and that's saying something, really, at this point.